So it looks like Mary Cosby is breaking her silence, and she's doing it on Twitter's Spaces. Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel, where you get daily and consistent hot topics in music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So if you've been following the channel, you know we did a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City recap yesterday. I'll post a link in the description so you can check it out. And one of the things that we said was how Mary Cosby has been so essential to the franchise and so essential specifically to Salt Lake City. Well, as you know, there have been a lot of rumors and interviews that have come out from her family members ever since season 1. And most recently, Sherelle's World had an exclusive interview with her cousin. I'm going to put that in quotes because during Twitter Spaces, Mary Cosby denied that he was even a relative. And of course, we know Up and Adam's interview with Mary's mother is coming up tomorrow. So we're going to talk about some of the things, some of the highlights of what came out of this Spaces interview with Mary Cosby. It was a long one because I have to say, when I first saw someone tweet that she was on Spaces, I was like, all right, maybe I'll check it out later. It was like an hour later and I was like, oh gosh, she's still on there. So I said, let me go on and see what's going on. For those that don't know what Twitter Spaces is, this is Twitter's version of Clubhouse. People are still on Clubhouse, but there are a lot of stuff that are happening on Clubhouse. Conversations, tea is being dropped. I don't have the time, y'all. I don't have the time to get into it. But I had to make time for this Mary Cosby Spaces conversation, and it was long. I literally fell asleep on it. I got a headache from it because there was just a lot of things happening. And look, I recently told you this week I was blocked by Mary Cosby on Twitter. However, I'm only blocked there. I'm not blocked on Instagram. It's okay. I don't care that I'm blocked. But it was interesting to hear Mary Cosby because I said during my recap of Salt Lake City yesterday, where is Mary Cosby? The latest news over the weekend was that her church was boarded up, the signage was taken down, and we were like, what's happening here? If you've been following the Mary Cosby storyline, it's been about her marrying her grandmother's husband, and also that her church may be a cult. So now this week, the other big news was that her mother was doing an interview, and in the preview clip, Mary Cosby's mother and stepfather say that they believe that Mary Cosby is the victim here. And it's actually Robert Sr. that's been manipulating the entire situation. And if you've been following the Mary Cosby story, the accusations, then there's a lot of litigation that's gone on. There are a lot of accusations against Robert Sr. specifically. And of course, we jokingly said, on the show of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, that her parishioners view her as God. All of that put to the side, because as you know, anytime Mary Cosby is confronted with these questions, she sort of deflects. She doesn't really answer, or she just sort of like, oh, that's ridiculous. So let's just talk about some of the highlights of what I wanted to talk about from this Twitter Spaces. So shout out to those that were able to organize this Twitter Spaces and get Mary Cosby. This is a get. The same way Up and Adam has gotten this interview with Mary Cosby's mom, that is a get. So shout out to everyone that are getting these landmark. Okay, I'm being dramatic when I say landmark. But when it comes to the Bravo universe, they are landmark interviews. So let's talk a little bit about what Mary said in this. First of all, she says that she did not quit. She did not quit the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She says, I'm not a quitter. Okay, so why didn't you go to the reunion? Why does Andy believe that you may have quit the show? Well, according to her, she has not quit. She may be in conversation with production. And look, a lot of you have said if Mary Cosby does not return, I'm out for next season. And the ratings for Real Housewives of Salt Lake City have been decent, but they haven't been great. Unless they have a real great person for next season outside of Jen Shaw, then they might even struggle next season to get ratings. They might struggle. So it wouldn't shock me that despite Mary Cosby not showing up to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City season 2 reunion, that production would be open to having the conversation. Because I know a lot of you said, well, production always punishes you if you don't. Well, that's not necessarily true. There have been housewives that have not attended reunions and have come back. Have there been a lot? No. However, I think Mary Cosby, and in Andy's words, she's been critical to the success of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So some other things that she said. So she says she's not a quitter. She may be in conversation with production about coming back. She also says, in regards to the trailer that came out about her mom, she says she found out that her mom did an interview on Twitter. That's how she found out. And she was like, oh my God, what is my mother doing on Twitter? Doing an interview? Talking about how you are the victim? And she says, Robert Sr., she's like, you can only, like, I can't do a Mary Cosby impersonation, but you can imagine. So, Robert Sr. does not control me. No man controls me. Okay. All right. And if you've seen their behavior on the show, even this season, I don't believe that she's being controlled by Robert Sr. I don't believe it either. And so many of you in the comment section have been saying the same thing. I don't believe that Robert Sr. is controlling Mary Cosby. Well, she denies Robert Sr. is controlling her during this Spaces conversation. She also talks about the other ladies of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Here's the thing. So she talks about the other ladies. You can only imagine, it throughout the several hours that this Spaces was going, there were conversations about the other ladies and her feelings about the other ladies. She's still, only person she really likes is Meredith Marks. But she says the other ladies, specifically Heather and Whitney, are fake. But she's like, you know what? Maybe that's just the way that they roll in that world. But she also talked about growing up, being born and raised in Salt Lake City in Utah, and what that life is like, which I thought was interesting. That part to me of the Spaces was interesting. A Black woman growing up in Salt Lake City, and how that is, because there isn't a large population of people of color in Utah. So I thought that part of the conversation was pretty interesting, and her talking about that. Look, we have all said it. Yes, despite all the cult rumors and the accusations, that have been happening, one of the things that we've said on the show was that Mary Cosby has her moments of funny, has her moments of clarity, has her moments of, being shady and snapping back. Like she really is perfect housewife and quirky. But in regards to interviews, so as you know, a lot of people want to hear her side. And this is the very first time. And this is why it's a big deal. And this is why we're talking about it, is because Mary Cosby did not come to the season 2 reunion. And of course, they asked the question. I thought this was a great question. Would she be open to doing interviews with the YouTubers? And I know a lot of you are like, why would she want to do YouTube? Because there are a lot of people still sleeping on these YouTube streets. YouTube is a major platform getting millions, billions of views. And not just views, money and advertising dollars. So YouTube is now beating out some of your favorite TV shows. And that's why a lot of these shows are coming to YouTube and putting content. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I've been on the fence about coming to YouTube, let this be your sign. Let this be your sign. So she says this in regards to the question, would she do an interview with YouTubers? And as you know, a lot of people have been talking about Mary Cosby. The church members have been coming through. We've been recapping the show and talking about the cult rumors. And, this past week, we were talking about a possible relationship with the late Cameron. And she says, no, they hate me there. She really believes that. She said that a few times, that people hate her. I was like, oh my gosh. Really? You feel like people hate you? But as you know, there are a lot of conversations that have been had on YouTube about Mary Cosby. But her saying that she did not want to do any YouTube interviews, but she would do a sit down with Andy Cohen. Of course she would do a sit down with Andy Cohen. She doesn't want to burn that bridge with Andy Cohen. Do I think Mary Cosby will come back for a season 3? Honestly, no. Church is boarded up. I feel like this new interview coming out this week with her mom is going to be very revealing. We shall see. But there was another scene that, we recapped and talked about during season 2, was about her parishioner that got into that car accident. She clarifies, and she says, and she said this a couple of times during this conversation, how they edited her life and how they didn't show her personal story on the show. She says that scene when she went to Whitney's home and told the story, and you remember the kids' reaction were like, what is wrong with this lady? She says that was all editing. They are the ones that made it seem like comedy, and she was hurt by that because it was such a bad accident. And we've talked about, a lot of people said you can't blame editing, blah, 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 blah. And do I think maybe editing, I can see how editing could do that, because I think they want to lean into making Mary Cosby be kooky and quirky. So I can see them leaning into that. But then it's sort of like, I would really want to see the unedited version of that, because at some point you're like, buckle up. And it was, I don't know. But I thought it was interesting when that question came up, because that scene to us, we were like, how do you go from talking about that horrific accident to that quirky moment where she's like, buckle up? I don't know. Either way, I don't believe this is the last that we've heard of Mary Cosby. Is it interesting timing that Mary Cosby's speaking out right before her mother does this interview? Nothing is just by accident, y'all. As always, if you listen to the Spaces conversation, or you just want to react to some of what I brought to you here, let's continue that conversation below. And as always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.